This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Have you ever heard the term executive presence? It describes people who have certain characteristics. Maybe better than trying to give a definition, who do you think has or had excellent executive presence? Steve Jobs? Ronald Reagan, maybe? Others, some would say maybe Elon Musk. I don't know about that so much. What is it about them that signals to you that they have great executive presence? What is it about them that says, hey, they're a leader I'm willing to follow? And sometimes it's hard to put a finger on that exact set of traits that indicate strong executive presence. So what is executive presence? Let's give a definition here. It's that blend of temperament, competence, skills that when combined, they send all of the right signals to everybody around them that he or she is in charge, they're confident, and capable of leading others. It's kind of the Pied Piper inside of an organization. Now, leaders know that they must embody executive presence to get ahead, influencing others, and they need it for driving results. Just having skills will not put you into the top level of executive functioning, particularly in the innovation space. For innovation leadership skills, executive presence is what allows you to influence and persuade others to support your ideas. Now, I cannot tell you the number of times and the number of conversations I've had with innovators who complain about their senior executives because they didn't get their idea funded. They didn't get their idea supported. And it always kind of boils down to the term of they didn't get it. They just don't get innovation. It's the CEO's fault. It's the culture of the organization's fault. It's the antibodies. And look, I'm just as much to moan and groan when I've been in this position as an innovation leader inside of an organization, and I can't get the people above me to get aligned with me. And a number of years ago, I took a step back and said, why? What is this role of influence? How do I influence people? How do I get people to have confidence in me and that maybe they don't get quite the idea, maybe they don't quite understand the technology, but they're willing to make the bet because of me. And what it really comes down to is this concept of executive presence. Now, why do most people fail at establishing their executive presence? Well, one is they don't know what it makes. What are the elements of a strong executive presence? There are no classes. There's no 12-step program. There's some books out there. You can go onto YouTube. There's some videos. But what I really find interesting is all of those books, and I shouldn't say all, but most of those books and the YouTube videos and the blog posts written about executive presence are not written by executives. Executives who achieve success at, let's say a Fortune 100 or Fortune 50 company. People who kind of lived through the process of putting together their own executive presence. And that really is why I'm doing this two-part series. This will be a part one. The next show will be a part two because there's just so much content that I want to share with you. But what you do find is in my case, having been a CXO level executive at a Fortune 5 company at $120 billion in revenue and growing into creating my own executive presence, is that when you look at people who have strong executive presence, you typically find out that it comes from their mentor. So executive presence in some cases is handed down from one person to the next person to the next person. And in this case, how you learn executive presence is by modeling it from the mentor, modeling it from the people who you see, who you admire, and who have a strong executive presence. So, how do you learn to create a strong executive presence for your own career success? And more importantly, how to use executive presence such that your innovations, your ideas get submitted and get funded. That's the ultimate objective. Now, there are traits that make up these strong executive presences. They are a number of them, and we're going to go through each one of them in detail. And it's not just about the trait. There are certain skills you need to learn. And I'm going to warn you now, if you want to build a strong executive presence, it's not just about listening to this podcast or radio show and you got it. You actually need to go practice this. These are skills that you will need to practice. You will need to become proficient at. And as I said before, this is a big topic and one that I cannot cover in just one episode of the show. So we're going to cover some of the traits in this week's show, and we're going to cover some of the traits from next week's show. Now, the question you're going to ask is who did I learn my executive presence from? Now, you've heard many times on this radio show me talking about Bob Davis, who was my mentor. Bob was a very well-known executive, in the 70s in the software business. And keep in mind, in the 1970s, the software business was all about mainframe software. Bob was one of the founding executives of a software company called Colonet. Colonet later got acquired by Computer Associates, and that's where Bob made his first round of what I would call significant money. So Bob was a very seasoned and senior executive when he recruited me out of college and to join his team. This is a division of Printisol Publishing, creating a new software part of the business focused on this new fangled innovation called PCs. So this would have been like 1981, 1982, the IBM PC just coming out. The Apple II had been out for a little while. I got the benefit with Bob of watching him and how he handled himself, both with very senior executives at Printisol Publishing and in this particular division called Deltek, and seeing how he operated in meetings and how he put his strategies together before he went and talked to executives and how he was very even-keeled. So I would say Bob kind of gave me a strong foundation of how to act as an executive. And I think, particularly if you're a college student or you're new into an industry or new into a company, sitting back and watching who you view as the most senior executives and seeing how they operate within an organization is, kind of lays the foundation for your success. Not every organization is the same. And I'll tell you right now, not every approach to executive presence works in every organization. So you have to be flexible and adapt to the organization. Do not expect the organization or your boss or the people reporting to you to adapt to you. That's just being egotistical. You need to adapt to them. If you're going to play a leader, you need to have a servant leader strategy. You need to have a servant leader focus. You're there to serve the organization. You are there to serve the people who work for you. You are there to serve your CEO to achieve success. If you don't have a servant leader focus and approach, then one, don't apply for my team because you won't make it on my team. But more importantly, that's what will make you successful across all of the organizations that you're a part of. But it wasn't just Bob. I've had the benefit. I worked under Alex Mandel. Alex is the former president of AT&T. Alex and a bunch of executives, me included, founded a company called Telligent in Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia. And I got to see how Alex operated, dealt with people, and engaged. Uniquely, Alex was Carly Fiorina's direct boss at AT&T, which is how I got to know Carly, and ultimately through a number of steps, how I ended up at HP and then ultimately to become the CTO there. So it's a group of all of these executives and seeing what they're doing. Now I'm going to share with you kind of the collection blended view of all of these people. So this week we're going to cover 3 of the traits in part 1 of this series, and we will cover the remaining traits in part 2. My objective is to share with you what you need to do to create a strong executive presence. So stay right where you're at. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back. We are talking today about how you can create a strong executive presence, a key skill for career success. One, just to be an executive, but it becomes a crucial executive skill set in order to achieve success for innovation if you want to go and grow into an innovation leadership role. So what is trait number 1? Trait number 1 is your composure. Your composure, especially under pressure. Now, what is composure? Composure is that state of, that feeling of being calm and in control of oneself. For executive presidents, it's all of the above while under pressure. And in some cases, as an executive, you are under intense pressure. Now, I'm going to give you a fact, whether it's the right or wrong. Realize that your reputation is disproportionately affected by how you handle yourself under pressure. It's like the old saying, never let them see you sweat. Because no one wants to follow a leader who's unpredictable in how you're going to react to bad news or when they find themselves under intense pressure. If you crack under pressure, you slam doors, you throw things, you yell at people, and people, and you're unpredictable and kind of, people kind of walk around on eggshells. That is the exact opposite of the skill set you need to have. Now, sometimes, just the awareness of its impact on your career is enough to keep you on your best behavior, right? Now, look back at the times you displayed anger. Think about it. You're at the office, someone personally attacks you or attacks your idea or, says your coding skills are, horrible. And all of a sudden you feel that tension rising in you, right? In some cases, look, I can look back at my own career and see and recall where I lashed out. I pushed back, I defended myself, I turned it around and said, no, your coding skills are really, horrible. If you're like most people, you'll conclude that your anger, that lashing out that you most likely did, actually hurt you. It hurt you more than whatever the person said, right? The person attacked your technical skills or your leadership skills or whatever. The fact that you lashed out actually caused you more harm than what the person actually ever said. Now, that alone, again, may motivate you to redouble your efforts to remain calm. We tend to, after we've lashed out and we've gotten angry, we tend to sit back, kind of lament, why did I lash out? Why did I do that? Why did I say those things? I didn't really mean those things. And it causes us to kind of redouble our efforts. Right? But if you do not have good control of yourself, that you can remain calm no matter what's going on around you, and it may not even be a personal attack. If you react to a personal attack when you're under intense pressure as a leader for something that maybe it's team related or organizational stress or the stress of trying to remain calm while there's a bunch of problems going on and a project may not be delivered on time and you made that commitment to your boss, under that pressure, you're going to explode. So if you cannot control yourself, having that pressure of having people do personal attack, there's no way you're going to remain calm. Your composure is going to collapse when you're under a leadership type of an exposure, and you've got to be prepared for that. So, and again, we try out of our best effort, but I'm going to give you some skills and some tricks here that I've used. But, remaining focused and even increasing your focus on what the issue is. Don't let the attack derail you. Focus on what the real underlying issue. If someone's personally attacking you, don't deal with the attack. Ask them, why are they attacking you? Stay focused. If something's happening with your leadership or with your team or your organization and it's generating stress and turmoil and you're trying to maintain your composure, focus is the one way to kind of keep on top of that. Now, many people, afraid they'll blow up, if you know you're going to react, will retreat. They'll sit back and avoid engaging in the activity that's causing them to lose their calm. Of course, that's not helpful. First, maintain or actually increase your focus on the challenge. When you feel pressure, remind yourself that you win if you remain calm and focused, bringing to bear your best listening skills and statements, ideas, suggestions, and if appropriate, pushing a little bit on some of the things that you're doing to try to address the challenges you're facing. Do not disengage. That comes across as retreating or giving up. That's not something that leaders do. Second, maintain perspective. In the moment, you may try to rationalize your loss of composure. You may say, hey, I just lost it. But in the vast majority of cases, after a person explodes, they usually realize the issue wasn't all that important. So maintain your perspective. And that loss of composure reduces clear thinking and will hurt your reputation. Trust me, I've lived through this one. Now, hindsight's shown that maintaining composure rather than fury is more likely to help. People will be shocked. They'll be saying, man, the seas are just rolling here. The organization's in turmoil, and wow, John just really kept it together, never lost his cool, and led us through all those challenges, and we were successful. So what tools can you use to prepare yourself to maintain your composure when entering a stressful situation? One is exercise. It helps to exercise right before a situation you anticipate could be stressful. The physiological tires you so that when you're feeling the pressure, you're less likely to go from 0 to 60. The other is breathe. A deep breath is widely acknowledged as relaxing. It slows down the heart rate, lowers the blood pressure. When you first feel the pressure, you feel the turmoil, let's say in a meeting, take that deep breath. If you wait until after the pressure is built up, it may require that you take more than a few deep breaths to get back to being calm and in control. Okay? Composure, critical to your reputation. Trust me on this one. If you're a person that yells and screams and throws things, you're going to be challenged in creating a strong executive presence. So we've covered one trait that will create a strong executive presence. We'll cover more of these traits in the coming up segments. And again, remember, we will also extend this into a second show, part 2, so don't miss that. We'll cover more right after this short break. Welcome back. We're talking today about how you can create a strong executive presence, a critical skill for career success, no matter what level in the organization you are looking to achieve. People want leaders with strong executive presence. So let's talk about trait 2. Trait 2 is making connections. Making connections, getting that relationship with people, learning how to understand and read people, the ability to adapt what's happening inside of a room and reacting to how people are taking in what you're sharing with them, an absolute key skill for executive presence. Now, your ability to build strong relationships that in turn establishes your reputation for helpfulness and intelligence, that is what you're trying to do when you're making these connections. You're establishing your reputation. And it's literally, hand-to-hand, one-on-one kind of conversations. So this is not about, writing a bunch of blog posts and getting a reputation that way, or doing a podcast or a radio show or writing a book. You establish your reputation for helpfulness and intelligence, two key elements for executive presence on a one-on-one basis. This is not about, building out your connections on LinkedIn. This is what Brian's a friend of mine, written some great books. Go check him out. Brian has this term that he refers to as H2H, human to human. It's not about, putting some great posts up on Medium or whatever. You need to have that face-to-face, one-to-one relationship with key people who can carry your reputation. So when other people are saying, hey, I'm looking for a senior person, they say, hey, I know this person. My interactions with them have been great. They've been extremely helpful. They're very smart, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's how you build up your reputation and build up your presence. In my case, how did I end up becoming the CTO at a Fortune 5 company? I can trace it all the way back to Computer Sciences Corporation, where I was a director working on projects. And I had been working with a company called Associated Communications. They're an investment firm investing in a bunch of telecom companies. And I had been at a number of their portfolio companies helping them. And I'd always responded to them and had great interactions. Well, it turns out they became the money behind what eventually became Telligent. They hired Alex Mandel out of AT&T. And when Alex says, hey, we need to find a good, strong CIO, it was my reputation and my one-on-one interactions with the Berkman family, which was the family behind Associated Communications. And they said, oh, we may know a guy, Phil McKinney, da-da-da-da-da. They introduced us. I had breakfast with Alex. We hit it off. And then I end up at Telligent. Carly then reaches out and says, hey, I'm looking for some executives to help me at HP. Alex then, passes my name to Carly saying, hey, I had this great executive, very highly regarded, very helpful, smart, blah, 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 great reputation, great executive. And that's how I ended up at HP. It's to my path to achieve my executive presence, to be able to operate at the highest level, started 15 years before I actually got into that role. So it's not about LinkedIn. It's not about writing blog posts. It's that one-on-one, eyeball to eyeball, human to human. So the basics of establishing these human connections is just the simple stuff like, maybe smile. Don't be a grump with a frown face. Smile. Be jovial, happy. Use the person's name. Now, this is my hardest part because I am horrible at names. I've got a friend of mine who's a pastor, and he can meet someone one time, and that person can just be a visitor to the church, go away, come back 2 years later, and he remembers the name, remembers their spouse names, remember their kids' names, remember who they worked for back then when they first met, remember when they first met, and that makes a huge impression. I wish I was better at names. I need to work on that. You need to work on that. And have an open body language. It's not about folding arms in front of your chest or leaning back in a chair in a conference room. Lean forward, lean in, act like you are engaged in whatever the conversation is. One of the tricks that I use when I'm engaging with people, particularly people that I don't know all that well, is I do my research. Know who I'm going to be meeting with. I want to know a little bit of the background. Do we have overlapping people we know? Now, that's where LinkedIn does come in incredibly helpful, where you can do research on people that you are about to meet. It just shows that you're interested in them. When you can engage and you can say, hey, I know I've heard that you're on the board at United Way, and what's the strategy for United Way for next year to increase the homeless problems that we have in our community. Those kinds of conversations with people, the fact that you knew what they do and what they're passionate about outside the office, it's not just about work, goes a long way to cementing you in their brain. They're going to remember you. Start with extreme helpfulness. In the first engagement, it's not about asking them for something like, hey, can I come in and meet with your CIO so I can show them my product? Or, hey, would you be willing to invest? No, don't go there. Start with extreme helpfulness. I prefer to have some IOUs in the bank. And what I mean by IOUs is from when I've helped them and I didn't ask anything in return. I solved the problem for them. I used my Rolodex to introduce them to somebody that turned out to be successful for them. Now I have an IOU. I have an IOU in the bank where now I can call on them when I need them. And I always focus on making sure that I have a positive balance in the IOU bank, meaning people owe me more than I owe them. Okay? Make the person feel special, especially as soon as you can. Now, don't go crazy. This isn't about ego. You're trying to, oh, wow, you're such an important executive and it's so nice. Don't do that. Don't do that. People can see right through that, but give them recognition. Give them acknowledgement, know something about their achievements and be able to comment intelligently about what they've done. And be curious about them and what they do. Ask questions, not just professional questions. Don't focus on the job. The job is not who the person is. The job is what the person does, but it's not the encompassing definition of who the person is. So ask questions about interest and passions and things outside. And again, if you've done your research, you can position those questions to show interest and to show engagement. And keep things positive. It's not like, don't bring up the fact that, hey, I saw that you got sued 5 years ago. How'd that turn out for you? Don't go there. Don't be negative, because if you get a reputation of being negative, people will avoid you. You will never establish that executive presence, that executive reputation, critical, particularly in the innovation game, to get your ideas funded. And always, always, always be attentive. Show that you've been listening, and show that through strong follow-up. If someone says, hey, do you know, let me know if you know anybody that's in X. And you go back, you find somebody in X, make that introduction. Right? Because the person just said, hey, I just kind of threw it out there, and you picked up with it, ran, and delivered. You establish your reputation for being attentive and strong execution. The objective here is to build up your network of people who see you as having executive presence. So always put your best foot forward. Always have composure and establish your relationships. Establish those strong relationships. Once you've built your network, establish a regular schedule of reaching out to your top 25 people in your network, not just email, but calls, lunches, etc. Have an objective for each time you reach out and give them something they want, such as a lead on a new client, before you ask for anything. I have a list of my top 25 contacts, people that I've known for years who have been the best sources for me to stay connected with what's going on and who can carry my reputation into the conversations they have. That 25 list, absolutely critical for me. We're going to continue this conversation when we come back after this quick break. Welcome back. We are talking today about how you can create a strong executive presence, an absolute critical skill for promotion, no matter what level you are within an organization, and if you're in the innovation game, a critical skill to get your ideas moving forward and convincing people to trust you to get that innovation done and to have the success that you think you can have with it. So let's talk about another trait. We've talked about two already. Let's talk about the third trait. The third trait, charisma. Now, many of you are going to say, hold on here a second. People just either have charisma or don't have charisma, and I don't know how to quantify. Let me quantify what I mean by charisma. Charisma is that ability to attract, charm, and influence the people around you. Let me read that again. Charisma is the ability to attract, charm, and influence the people around you. Charisma can help you rouse followers, gather people around you, and employees to band together in pursuit of a goal. It's that ability to get people to come and buy into your vision, that if they come with you, they're going to achieve something that is high impact. It's going to change the world. And it's that ability to convince and attract. That is what I'm really talking about, is that kind of the core element of charisma. It really focuses on how do you really infuse the efforts of a team and individuals with a meaning and purpose. Someone who's got strong charisma, they set a strong vision that gets others excited. Best example of this I could think of is Steve Jobs around the Macintosh. He moved that team into a separate building. He raised the pirate flag above the building. He changed the code access to the building so only people on the Macintosh team could go into that building. That set a tone that just drew people. People were scrambling to get onto the Macintosh team. Later, Steve did the same thing when he put together the original engineering team that ultimately created the iPhone. Create a strong vision that gets others excited, and then let your passion come through. People will be convinced that the team can achieve the impossible. Now, warning, you have to have the characteristic we talked about in the last segment about making connections. Your ability to get people into your network who see you, who see your self-confidence, who see your executive presence, who attribute to you the almost extreme helpfulness, that see in you the ability to follow through and execute. All of those are critical foundational skills to build your charisma on top of. And people always say, hey, people are just born charismatic. And that's true. Some people just have it just supernaturally. But it doesn't mean you cannot learn it. Steve Jobs in the 1980s, when I met him for the very first time, did not have it. He had kind of a slick used car salesman approach, right? That really was a turnoff for a lot of people. After he left, he did Next, Pixar, came back to Apple. That's when he had his charisma. It's something that you can learn and you can become proficient at. Now, what are some of those characteristics? What are some of those key factors that you need to exhibit? Now, this isn't an exhaustive list. This is something for you to start on that you can practice. One is have confidence. Don't be, I don't know, and go in. If you're leading a team, do your research, be prepared, and be confident. You may not have all the answers, right? Don't fall into that engineering trap that everything's got to be, you got to be at 99 or 100% before you say yes. You've got to be willing to take some risk, have that confidence. You got to have, I call it exuberance, but you got to have kind of that energy, that positivity that you're going to inject in the team that's going to get others excited. You got to have that optimism. You don't know what the end result is, but you're optimistic that this team is going to figure it out and we're going to win. You got to have that optimism. You have to have that ready smile. I talked about it in the last segment. You're going to hear it repeated multiple times through this series. People want to be around people who are positive. Don't be a downer. Don't be negative, right? Smile. Be ready with that ready smile. You have to have that expressive body language. Shaking hands, being look approachable, that people can come up and talk to you. Don't hide in an office or hide in a cube. Be out and about. I'll do some playful stuff, maybe punch somebody in an arm that I know pretty well as kind of a teasing gesture. Have that expressive body language. And then have that friendly, passionate voice. Work on your voice tone. That is critical. Charisma is one of those traits that many think that you're just born with, as I said. While some have natural charisma, this is something you can learn and become quite good at. So start practicing and build your charisma. Now, for part 1 of the series on how to create the strong executive presence, we've covered the following traits: maintain your composure, making a connection, reading, knowing people, and charisma. The remaining traits we're going to cover in part 2 of the series. To make sure you don't miss part 2 when it comes out, subscribe to the show over on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. And if you know someone who could benefit from having their career stepped up with a dose of executive presence, why not tell them about this series? Word of mouth is how we've grown our subscribers to this show since the very beginning back in March of 2005. Yes, 2005. And thank you for telling others. To continue our conversation on this and other topics related to innovation, creativity, leadership, career, join me over in the Innovators community. Just visit theinnovators.community. Membership is free. The community is growing at an unbelievable pace. That's where I hang out every day. That's where I answer questions. That's where I'll throw ideas out, contribute to other people's posts. So hop on over, theinnovators.community. And I just want to say again, thanks for joining me. I know it's a commitment of your time to download and listen, and I greatly appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.